This is Kat Sturtz from rockingyourpath.com with another episode of Fast Action Fridays. Today, my special guest has a venture, an affinity, a skill in doing something we've never talked about on Fast Action Fridays before. My guest is Rosie Battista. And Rosie, I want you to tell everybody a little bit about yourself and also what we're going to be discussing today.
Sure. So we're going to be talking creativity, I think, Kat, because that is my driving nature. So I realize that all I want to do ever is just create, which gets me into trouble sometimes because then I have all these things created and I haven't done anything with them. But what I'm doing now is I've just created my course, and I'm super excited today because it's opening its doors today, a week early for the early birds, and it's about creating card decks.
Which is the thing we've never talked about here on Fast Action Friday. We've talked about creativity and being creatively organized, coming up with ideas, but we're going to focus in on creativity in terms of card decks.
Yeah, so it's about really making, to me, it's a very different, fun, physical product that an entrepreneur can have. And it's coaches, speakers, healers. It really almost doesn't matter what kind of business you have. I see that it's possible to have a card deck in whatever business. So I actually did a little video, which I think you're going to share with everyone later, that shows you different ideas of the way different businesses can actually use a card deck. So I just feel that people are so sucked into the internet and so sucked online that I love, like, even though everything's digital and my boyfriend's trying to get me digital books, but I want to have this thing in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
So I love card decks because you have them in your hand and they're also really easy and transportable to carry around. So if you pick one out of the deck for the day, I can carry it with me if I want to inspire me throughout the day. And it's just small chunks of really juicy information that I could actually process without getting overwhelmed. So that's why I love them so much.
So some of us may think of card decks and say, well, I don't really know what those are. But if you've ever had flashcards, that's a type of card deck. If you've collected baseball cards or sports cards or tarot cards or wisdom cards or angel cards or all kinds of things, inspirational affirmation cards, there's all kinds. And that's where that creativity, and I love that you said you can think of a type of card deck that would go with any industry.
Yeah, there's almost
one card deck that would sell across every industry, but that within every industry there's a opportunity to create a card deck that would be of interest to that market.
Yes. And there's not really any business that I could think of that couldn't use it. And they're just so useful as gifts, the things that you could do to leverage them in your business are huge. So many. As I was doing the course, I said, okay, here's 9 ways. And then by the time I got to the end of the course, I'm like, no, actually I lied. There's 16 ways. And then now that I keep thinking, I'm like, okay, I'm on to almost 50 ways to leverage them, that, it's not a direct sale of I'm going to sell this many card decks. It's the way you're able to engage with people. So even if you're doing, if people are new to video and they're like, oh my God, what am I going to talk about? Well, you can have a deck of 56 cards. This is content that you could talk about one every day, and you have 50, you could do a video a week just based on one card deck. So I think it's a super exciting product. And I love products, and this one especially is special.
All right. I love that. If you're watching the video, there will be a link at some point that you can click on, not to click on, but you'll be able to go to that link and get the free resource. If you're listening to the podcast, make sure you go to rockingyourpath.com, search for Fast Action Fridays, and Rosie's post there that I will put up that will have a replay of this and a link to get her free resource. All right, so lead us into some fast action tips that we can take regarding card decks?
So I'm going to say, here's what I would say. A fast action tip regarding creativity, card decks, whatever you're creating. I love to have a book with me, like a beautiful journal. That is my inspiration idea book. So that if whatever I'm doing, when an idea strikes me, I just write it in my book. And to me, that's like, okay, so then they're all in one place, nice and safe. And you can, when you're sitting quiet, you can go and look through and expound upon it. And if you're like building a deck, you want to think about the thing that you say all the time to your client. What is your thing? Like, so just an example, like a person like me, I wouldn't be making a card deck on how to organize really anything, because I'm just not, I don't work like that. I'm a creative, chaotic, flowing. That's how I create, and that's how I do things. So it wouldn't make sense for me to have that deck. No one would believe me if I had that deck. So you want to do something that speaks to what you are always talking about. So it's not as complicated as, like, it's not that complicated. You know what you talk about all the time. So
mine are quick wins. And I don't have them all in one book, but I do have a whole box of notes, and everyone's got a different quick win on it.
Right. And so that could be something that you put together as a collection of something.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think along those terms, it's kind of like a collection of like the same type thing that you're like, there's a purpose behind it. And always, just like in anything in business, you always have to know, what are you doing with them? I mean, why are you investing your time and energy, talent in making a card deck? What are you going to do with them?
That's what I really want to focus on here, because the manufacturing, like you mentioned, is not, and the selling of the deck itself is not what we're talking about being the most important or most useful thing to us as solopreneurs, unless we're in the paper business and the printing business. It's what we're going to do with these cards.
That is how I really feel about it, because they are very impactful and they can definitely help people and help your clients. So to me, it's like, I think you're missing the boat if you think I'm going to make card decks and I'm going to sell 1 million. It's like saying I'm going to write a book and I'm going to be the best-selling on the New York Times. I mean, that very few people do that, but it doesn't mean that their book is any less important or valuable in transformational for people. And it's the same thing with this product. It's like, what are you putting into it that you want your people to experience, and the people that you're helping in the world, which is really what draws you to be an entrepreneur anyway, right? I mean, I think for most people.
How do we go about figuring out how to use these cards to benefit ourselves in such a way that we're of service to our clients and prospects?
So are you meaning how
do we decide how we can use the cards that we may have an idea for?
Again, I go through all of this really in deep detail in my course, but I just gave you one example as going out there online, talking about them, going to networking events, and always having them with you, because you never know. Like, you can tack them onto things, create courses around them, whatever it is that you're doing. So if you can even teach to them. If you have a client and you say, I need you to do these tasks or focus on one task a week, and you're a business coach, say, and you have a deck of cards that are different tasks for whatever the thing is that you're teaching, you give them to someone and say, okay, one small thing so the person's not overwhelmed. If you can, because it's then gradual steps that they can take and something that they can look at. And even if there's nothing wrong with having your most infamous quotes that you say all the time, your personal favorites or your personal things that you say over and over. So I know I have a coach right now that's always saying, what if it were easy? I mean, she says it about everything. And then it makes you think of, oh my God, now I have to stop and think, what if it were easy? But she always says that. But if I get reminded of that by her deck of cards or something, and say, oh, what if it were easy? Okay, I could put that card on my computer and just have it there as the focus of the week for myself. So it's just kind of like, they're useful like that, If you're the person that's creating them, think about how you would want your clients to use them. What would you want? What would help you?
Right. I like that. I know somebody's going to say, okay, I can see that having a card deck might be useful for me and my business, but what are the practical aspects of this? What do we have to keep in mind if we were going to develop one of these? And number one, I'm going to be upfront and say that I've got a couple ideas for cards, and my guest today is someone that I would say, can I hire you? Can I give you my ideas and work with you and let you take care of you do
Right.
that, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I love that you just said that, because here's the thing. We can have all good intentions. It's even like why they have ghostwriters. We can have the great idea that we want to put into the world, but we just don't either have the time, whatever it is, whatever kind of wherewithal, we just don't have it to be able to do it. And so then I say, guess what? I love doing it. I'm happy to make your cards, Kat. If you have this great idea, nothing would make me happier than to help you put your gift into the world. That's what I really love to do. So I'm available for that. I also have a medium, like besides my self-study course, I have where I do it with you. So if you're stuck along the way, we just have calls and we work out whatever it is that got you stuck, which is a nice intermediary option for people. But not to be like disappointed with yourself or say, oh, well, I just can't do it. It's not about that. It's about a decision. Like for me, I'd rather hire someone to work on the back end of my computer. Like, am I capable? Yeah, but do I want to? No, absolutely not. So, I think our time is much more well spent in doing the things that we love to do, and then getting help and support in doing the things that maybe not so much, because the thing is going to come out better. With that said, one of the things I also teach is that you need to still be aware. Like, I'm not going to just say to someone, yeah, do my website, without being aware of what I really want it to look like. So I do take you along steps of the creative process to figure out what do you want it to look and feel like, so that you can say to your designer person, here's what I want, and you get back what you want. Because we don't want to leave it up to a designer who never can understand exactly what we have in our head. She's going to have her own thing in her head.
Right. And we have to understand why they're recommending a certain weight of paper stock and a certain size, and how you're going to package it.
All of that. This is the thing about production of an item. It's not like words jump on a piece of paper and you have a deck of cards. And that's what it's so, like when I was putting the course together, I'm like, oh, wait, this one goes first and this module goes first. And I'm like, wait a minute, you have to know all of it before you make the final decision, because you can't say, yeah, I'm going to write 300 words on a card and then it doesn't fit on your size. I mean, that's too many words for a card deck anyway. But you have to be aware of all the pieces that go into it, or you have to know what goes into a product.
All right. So can you give us some idea of what we would look for? Because I've got a sample of the cards that you've done, and I really appreciated the quality of them.
Yeah.
So are there things that you recommend for cardstock? Because I know some of the home moms out there and some of the hands-on creative people are going to think, I just might want to try my own first.
Yeah, and I've actually seen people take a deck of 52 cards and just like white out the back, like paint on the back of it, and then do whatever they're doing, and then they could have it spread. It depends on the way you work, and I go through all of these things. Like if you need to really see them physically and touch them, that's a great way, or cutting out paper or index cards or whatever like that, right? But as far as your paper stock and stuff, there's multiple decisions involved, because you have to know what you want. If you want to, you can get one deck at a time, you can get many. So it's like printing, then it affects the cost and affects other things. It affects the kind of paper you can choose. So it's limited. There's certain things are limiting. So you always need to know what you're going to do with them.
Is there an average or a norm of what's recommended to at least maintain a good quality card?
Well, there are a couple different places where you can do print on demand. There's some that, of course, I recommend that I've used and I trust and I like. Um, um, and there is, so, but each different printing company, that's why it's not, I can't really say exactly, right? So each different printing company that you would choose would require something different, would offer something different, would have slight variations on what the coatings would be, what options you have. So again, I say that you have to date your printer, kind of. You have to really get familiar with what they're wanting. So you give them, it's just like anything. If you hand someone, like, they're not going to be able to make the recipe when you don't give them the right ingredients, right?
Exactly.
If you forget a piece of it, then you're going to get a cake that like has no sugar in it or something, and it tastes icky, right? So it's the same thing. If you give low res photographs, your stuff's not coming out nice and you're not going to be proud of it. So it's a project that takes a little bit of an investment of your time and like desire, because you're making something that is out there. Like, you want to be proud of it. It's out there in the world, right? And has your name on it.
Mm-hmm.
So you want it to be good. Like, anything worth doing is worth doing well.
I like what you said. Just, you gave a little example that kind of slid right through it. Pick up the cards that you have around the house, or go to a bookstore, which has a growing number of card, a whole section there, and see what catches your eye about them, right?
Yeah.
And what passes
Absolutely.
for quality to you.
Absolutely. I mean, going shopping and getting inspired. I love, one of the things I do at least once a month is go to Barnes and Noble and walk around. I just love to look at the book covers and the titles and how people lay things out and like everything. It just like inspires me to have so many ideas, take my book with me, and then, put everything together, and it just really fires me up. So do whatever fires you up and gets your creative juices flowing, and looking at things, like looking at cards and say, oh, I love this, but I really like that better. I really like this. And one of the things I go through in my course is, the way you choose color, and different ways to choose color, and different way to do designs, and different things that like appeal to you, because they're very original, right? They're going to be like you. Yeah, which is fun.
In some of the time we have left, can you describe some of the card decks that you've either created yourself or helped someone create, or maybe saw in Barnes and Noble or elsewhere, that stood out to you, either because of the theme, or it was unexpected, or?
Well, two things come to mind. So a store-bought one, I tell this story that this is one of the cards that were the most impactful to me. So I think about cards as having an impact. And this was, so I had a boyfriend give me St. Michael the Archangel card deck. And then he broke up with me like a week later. And I'm like, and I needed that deck of cards really kept me, kept me like out, kept me going. Because it was so, I would pull one a day and like, okay, breathe, right? Because it was like a little tumultuous time. And I'm like, wow, I wonder what that was, that whole thing was about. But so they were impactful, and they really made an impression on me. And then there was one deck that I created for a client, and she does a really interesting thing. So she was doing chakra, numerology, and cosmic energy readings. So all three of those components had to go into a card deck. So for example, like, I don't really, I know what the chakras are, but I don't know anything about numerology. I know nothing about cosmic moon energy. But I'm able to get out of her, and I was able to get out of her, okay, here's the information. How do you want to use it? Like, really coach her to be able to give me the proper information to make this beautiful deck of cards. And she was so happy with her deck, but she does readings all over, the internet and on Facebook, and she teaches people how to use her cards. So talking about a way that people can use them. She teaches other people how to use them. Now, this is a specific way to read all these different things, but she does that, and she uses them on a cable TV show that she does. So she's really leveraged them a lot and uses them. They're part of her whole business. And that was a lot of fun to create because it was different.
That sounds very much like when I help a writer organize the content for a nonfiction book. They usually come with more than enough information, but it's not always presented in a workflow that works for the final product. So I like that you didn't need to be an expert in the topic at hand.
Right.
In fact, probably not being an expert in there gave you that objectivity of what someone else needed to see in the workflow. You weren't so close to the trees that you forgot that there was a forest there.
I mean, I think that's so key, right? Because to me, I was like, okay, well, then you need a book to explain this. So her card deck comes with a little book of like the instructions, more detailed than maybe a deck that doesn't need so many instructions, but because the person has to know what each thing represents and each thing means. So for me, I'm like, I'm reading this a little. If I don't understand it, then someone else might not understand it because I'm coming from a zero level, right? So exactly what you said is it's very powerful to work in collaboration with certain things, with books, with this, where other people could say, but wait a minute, what about they ask you questions that you just assume everyone knows, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So the free resource we have from Rosie will be the free card deck ideas. And you said this is a video they'll be able to watch to show.
I actually go shopping on Amazon. And I pick, so
I can't wait to see it. I have not seen this.
Yeah, I just go shopping on Amazon and I say, oh, look at this card deck. Look at this card deck. You could do this and you could do that. And oh, this would be great for this kind of person. This would be good for this kind of business. So it's short, but it definitely gets your creativity going about what is possible for you.
Oh, I love that. I love that take along shopping angle, because just talking about it, when we're talking about something that is so diverse creatively that you almost need to see it and have somebody like you explain what we are looking at and why are they different. They're not just a deck of cards. Here's some of the nuances between them. So I love that.
Exactly.
Again, if you're watching this interview, you're going to see go across the screen a URL, a link that you can follow to access this. And if you are listening to the podcast, make sure and go back to rockingyourpath.com, search for Fast Action Fridays and Rosie Battista, and you'll be able to find the information there. Thank you, Rosie, for spending this time with me. I know I could spend at least another hour or two talking about this topic. I'm kind of nerdy that way.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
And this is Kat Sturtz from rockingyourpath.com, closing another episode of Fast Action Fridays. Be sure to tune in next week when I have another great special guest. And remember to keep rocking your unique path to success. Bye-bye.